All right, welcome everybody to Stage Speak. This is our live session one. I'm excited to have you all here today. And, I want to keep these live sessions very focused on what your needs are. So there's not an enormous amount of planned content in it. But to be able to also kind of take the direction of where you guys are at from when we were all together a few weeks ago to where you're at now in the program, applying it, where's the struggle, where's the successes. So feel free to unmute. Um, I'm going to stop share on this piece right here. And there's enough of us that I can see everybody in this, and just give me some feedback.
What I got from your class is to really step outside my box and not to fear, but to really understand myself and who I am as a Sunlight Biology educator today. So my challenge is to, who am I? I guess I don't understand who am I as an educator. So like I'm trying to figure out what is my staple. So I think that is my struggle.
Perfect. And Jill, how do you think you're going to come to that answer?
That's a question I don't really know. I've been like trying to go over the notes from the class and so forth, and I tell the story, like who is Jill, 4C balayage girl? Who's the story? So I'm trying to like, my answer is why not? So in my mind, I always question why not balayage? Why not? You know what I mean? So in my mind, I feel like that is who I am because I want to challenge people. You know what I mean? So I feel like I need to put that into my story.
Perfect. Good. Good. And our second live session is definitely going to be story, but we have to tap into it today as well, in order to kind of start manifesting where we want to go with that. All right? Good. Good. Thanks for being here. All right. Who wants to go next? Go ahead, Kimberly. Whoops, you got to, there you go.
Okay, sorry. I have to keep it mute if I'm not talking because my dog barks.
I want to hear your dog bark at least.
So I think for me is when I have taught classes, I get very lost as soon as people start asking me questions when I'm trying to teach. So I find like just going over yesterday, I finally got to finish session 2 by kind of having more of a story and timeline that will help instead of just stopping what I'm doing and then answer the questions, because for me, I feel I just get so lost and then my brain is scatterbrained and I can't get back on track.
Good. Perfect. Perfect. So we'll talk about kind of like in that staging method, how to be able to set that up to where people don't feel the need to be like responding right away with, hey, I have a question type of thing. But we're setting that up to happen instead of setting them up to be learning and then engaging in questions when we get further into it. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Thanks for sharing that, Kimberly. Denisha or April, who wants to go next?
I'll go next. I think one of my biggest struggles, honestly, is just the vulnerability piece of just, I just want to keep things, I want to keep business. And so I just have a hard time stepping into that personal level.
I get it. I totally get that. Yeah. How far along are you in the program?
Not very far.
Okay. All right. So you're still in the beginning. That's okay. We're only in week 2 of it. So, I have no expectations for you guys to be any further than having accomplished one session at this point. Okay. All right. And Denisha, what about you?
I'm sorry I was joining from my computer late. Can you repeat the question, please?
Say that again.
you repeat the question, please?
Oh, sure. I was just kind of getting a little bit of feedback from everybody of where they're at this point, from our original training when we were live and in person to now kind of going into it and being, a student of a process and everything. Where are you seeing any struggles, challenges, or successes?
Um, I completed the second session, so 1 and 2,
Hmm.
and I created my opening, and
Good.
that, following the steps you gave us, that was, I was able to do that. I didn't have a challenge there. Getting to the relevancy, I didn't know. I don't know. I felt like I missed where the relevancy point,
Perfect.
where I'm supposed to write something
Okay.
that wasn't already in the opening statement.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. So relevancy. Relevancy is a tricky one. And remember, that was one of the areas that I said that this is the most missed piece in people's presentations. And Kimberly, I think that is going to be the part that's going to help you, is when you create that relevancy that gives people an opportunity to connect with you in a way that kind of subsides, say, questions, but allows you to keep kind of moving forward into the actual content, your body.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I was looking because I took some notes on that. I can't think of where, oh, I see. I don't think I filled that part out about relevancy. I think for me, I think I connect better with a stylist who's been doing hair for quite a long time, because I've been doing it for 40 years, and I started painting because I moved and I had to kind of reinvent myself. And I found for me, it was something that stepped outside my comfort zone, because when I had a clientele 25 years, I didn't really have time to start practicing, because to me, I feel to really do balayage and do it well, it's just like practicing, like for when you start doing foils.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get very scared, but they don't think back to when they were in school or started foiling hair, when I have bleed marks all over or uneven lift. And I think that's why most people are really scared about painting hair. I found when I have taught classes, people right out of school, I think they're the easiest to teach. I struggle with the ones who come to a class and then really, because they're not connecting with it right away, they lose patience, and then the negativity comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agreed. Yeah. I mean, there's that learning curve, and then we're all thinking, I'm so booked, for the busy stylist, I'm so booked, I don't have time to try something new on an existing client. I'd have to wait for a new client to come in with the expectation that she doesn't know what I've done before or have any expectations of what I'm capable of, and then give it a whirl. And that's kind of like helping people get past that fear factor in it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's good. So in general, we want to be able to kind of look at you guys educating from a standpoint of making the claim, I am an educator. Okay. I happen to educate on balayage, but I also want you to think about what else do you educate on? And it doesn't have to necessarily be another manufacturer, another company, another technique, but I want you to think about how this can also help people to overcome that fear of what they're going through and trying something new or learning a new technique. So, like how Kimberly had just shared, I think I connect better with the younger people. Was that your
The
statement?
ones, right, like kind of out of school, or people that have been in the business a long time that are want to learn something new because they feel that they're stagnant, and they're looking to maybe elevate their service, where those are the ones that I tend to connect with. Even when I've gone and worked at the hair show, the ones that seem to really want to really learn, I have a hard time walking away from them. To the ones that just kind of aren't so interested, I guess you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that for me, I'm really drawn to that person that really wants to learn and get the technique down. I'm realizing I think I would prefer to teach private or semi-private classes than a class of 6 or 8 people.
Yeah, good.
It's just, I find for me, I can stay more focused that way.
So that's your relevancy right there.
Right.
So your relevancy is kind of tying into, I find that those that are younger and are not afraid of trying new techniques, and also those of you like me, okay, you're bringing yourself into it, like me, that needed to have a new brand connection because I started all over. I didn't have that same clientele that kind of kept me on track of doing the same thing over and over again. I got to reinvent myself. So how many of you fall into that category of you're eager to learn something new and definitely are going to take the time to apply it? Okay? That, like, there's your relevancy. You're going to build it in from based on that story piece in there. And your story could be the transitioning that you did from moving away and having to start all over again. That could be your story.
Okay.
But you want it to be not just the story of you moving away. You want it to be really kind of tapping into, and I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask you, did you consider doing something else? Did you consider not doing hair when you moved and had to start all over again?
Yes, because
Okay.
I had a very hard time getting a job.
Okay,
Because I
perfect.
realized at that point I was almost 30 years into doing hair, and most places I was going, most interviews I would go on, the person maybe was doing hair maybe 10, maybe 15 years. And I realized at that point that the questions I were asking them, I became very intimidating because I don't want to say I knew too much, but I worked in a very large salon. I would have 2 or 3 clients at a time. We did not have personal assistants, but we had salon assistants.
Mm-hmm.
So I could really juggle a lot of different services all at the same time because I had help. And when I was asking, do you have help? If I have more than one client, I realized then that most of them only work on one client at a time, or the trainer of the salon would have an assistant, but nobody else did.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So, in that story that you just shared, Kimberly, let me ask you this. Do you feel like that was too much information, not enough information, or just the right amount of information, if that was a story?
Probably a little too much.
Okay.
I don't think I need to go into all that, why I thought about doing something else. Because I do love what I do. I never feel like I go to work. I think I was just more, I was just struggling with the fact of I think I was at that time trying to find the salon was just like what I came from.
Exactly.
And my kids were young, and I was used to being able to make my schedule change if something happened, because my boss knew that I was still going to come to work 3 days a week, regardless if it was on a Tuesday instead of Thursday.
Okay. What were you considering doing if you didn't find a salon job?
I was really considering becoming a flight attendant at that time.
Okay, perfect. I want you to stay in that space of that, because one of the things I'm gonna request that you do as homework is build that into the story using the story format. That when I moved away from here to here and left this and was fearful, scared, wondering, curious, overwhelmed by having to start all over again, I really considered not doing this.
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of where I want you to think about, kind of like manufacturing your story to that point, because then it's going to be able to tie into, but my commitment to, which kind of, fulfills an intention as well, my commitment in this industry, or I just thought, well, maybe if I experienced learning new things, that it would be easier for me to go back into this and grow as well, instead of thinking I had to do it the same way I've always done it.
Right.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, perfect. And so start crafting that as a story for you, because I like the idea that you were considering a flight attendant, and it's like, why? Like, you don't have to answer that now, but like sharing that with people, why that over doing hair? And people are going to relate to that, you know.
Right.
And it's still a service business, which again, I think our hearts are always in service no matter what.
Right.
No matter what we do. Once we're a hairdresser, like we're never going to like be a paralegal. You know,
No.
we're always going to find a service
Right.
we can support other people in. Yeah.
Mhm.
Good.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So, Jill,
Yes.
who am I? Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm Jill. I'm Boise Balayage girl. I'm a single mother. I have a daughter and a granddaughter, and I've traveled for 20 hours, so excuse me for my voice, but I've been on my own since 16 years old, you know what I mean? And I hated high school, and I always wanted to do hair, and I love the creativity of it, you know what I mean? I knew that there was more out there than just doing hair, so I was excited when I went to beauty school, you know? I've always been on the creative side, always the one that always step outside the box. So I think that's who I am. And when it came to balayage, the light bulb went off because I knew the creativity wouldn't be a ball and chain against the foil, you know what I mean? So that's why I get excited when I balayage, because I can create balayage into my haircuts that stand out. You know what I mean? So I get excited. So I think that is my story and why I choose balayage.
Good. Now, I love everything about what you said until
Mhm.
you started talking about balayage.
Okay.
Okay. Even though you're Boise Balayage girl and this is the whole point of all of this, everything about your story was
Uh-huh.
interesting and I could relate to. Anybody else relate to it? Like they couldn't wait to get out of high school. They had a more creative side. Yeah, this is very relatable to people in our industry. But once you started talking about balayage, you started educating instead of staying in the story.
I think because I get so nervous inside that I rush inside. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So I feel like I need to slow down. And so that's what I get nervous of, the fear, I guess.
I want you guys to imagine that your class is hair painting with balayage or whatever your title is, right? Whatever your title is. That's why people are showing up. But that front part where you're introducing yourself, sharing your role,
Mhm.
creates credibility, identity, and credibility. Sharing your story actually doesn't have to have anything to do with hair painting and balayage. And in some cases, depending on where your story is at, may not have anything to do with doing hair.
Okay.
Period. Okay? So you're crafting a story that is just allowing people to trust you and get to know you. And in a sense, because we're very judgy, size you up. So the minute you can create
Okay.
a connection with them, it works. So once you get done with your story and you go into intention, that's when you can kind of bridge the gap. And you could say, you know, so be doing hair for how long have you done hair, Jill?
34 years.
Okay. And so how long have you been doing balayage?
Since 2018.
Okay, so 5, 6 years in there. All right.
Yes.
So for 30 years, you loved just being a hairdresser, but it wasn't until 5 years ago
Yes.
when you got introduced to a different technique that you felt like, you know, this is it. This is what I want. I want to be great at this, and I want to help other people. So there's your intention.
Okay.
Now you're working through your intention, but craft your story to where you're talking about you. And let me ask you this, because this is where I can relate as well. What didn't you like about high school?
It was boring to me. I didn't really relate because I'm more of a visual learner, not a book reader. When I read, it just one ear and out the other. So when I saw balayage, I was like, what is she doing? I want to know everything about it. I want to
So
take
you
it
went back
home.
into balayage. You went back into balayage. Okay. Try
Uh,
to not go into balayage at this point.
okay.
Okay. Because the minute you go into balayage, people think that you're starting to teach when you're still only
Okay.
in your story, and we got to still get through intention and relevancy. Then body, you can start talking about balayage. Okay. So
Okay.
you found it boring. What
You
else?
found it boring. Just didn't relate to anything when it came to like history or anything. The things I just didn't connect. I wanted more, something different. Yes. I guess being on my own when I was 16 years old, living on my own in my own apartment, I was thinking forward. I wasn't thinking high school. I didn't want to be in high school because I was living in my own apartment, taking
You
care
were
of my
already
own
an
self,
adult. Yeah.
pretty much. So I had to take care of myself. So to me, I was always around older people, people that can teach me things for the future, not just in the moment.
Okay, good.
So,
So you're going to need to, your story needs to be kind of on, here I was at 16 going to high school, but I was living on my own. Now, the circumstances, that could, if it's a longer class that you're doing, you have more opportunity to kind of share more of that personal side of yourself. But at this point, it's like, you guys, listen, I was 16. I was living on my own. I was sitting in a classroom thinking, how is any of this going to be relevant to me taking care of myself and making a living? And a
okay,
lot of people can relate to that.
okay,
I said the same thing. I remember specifically saying to my English teacher and getting kicked out of the class, I don't understand how I'm ever going to use Shakespeare in my future. And I'll be damned if I didn't become a speaker and I use Shakespeare quotes all the time. Okay.
okay,
But at that point, it was a complete disconnect for me. I didn't understand, why did I need to know this stuff? All right. And, looking back on it, I'm like, okay, all right. It was a fairly well-rounded, approach to just kind of like giving me access to education. Okay.
okay.
Good. But just try to be really careful in your story.
No apologies.
Don't bring up balayage until you get into
Oh, yeah.
attention. Okay. Keep
Okay,
it as a story without that, because then people are going to think the class has already started, and they're going to be like, oh, she's talking about balayage. I gotta take notes, or I gotta pay attention, type of thing. We're just building trust.
mhm. But like when I'm speaking in myself, I get all worked up inside. So what can I do to help myself, like, you know what I mean, slow down and, you know what I mean, be that person?
And you guys, it's okay to be honest and say things like, you know, like, I always found talking with my clients at the chair to be really easeful, but this right here, you guys, talking to you is not as easy for me. But I want you to know that this is another thing that I'm learning to do really well, and I'm excited about getting better at it, just like I did balayage. Okay, like there's ways to be able to build it in there. Don't feel like it has to be perfect. It's better for you
Okay,
to be you than to be perfect.
okay,
Okay. And if there's a stopping point or a stall, or you're using filler words, just say, all right, let me get back on track here. Okay.
okay,
Because you could say something like, oh, let me get back on track here, you guys, because I'm so excited to be able to share everything that I have to share with you today.
okay,
And people are very forgiving in that. So just be you. And
okay,
like you're being right now. Okay. Vulnerable.
okay.
Vulnerable. Okay. Speaking of vulnerability, April.
Yes.
So business is business. I get it. Do you see and understand the clarity of the transition, even though it might be hard for you?
Can you ask that a different way?
Yeah, sure. So, being able to share a little bit about you in the story piece,
Okay.
going into intention before relevancy, do you see the impact that it has on your attendees by doing that versus going right into business?
Yes, I totally see the I see the relevancy of doing that. Absolutely.
Great answer. Great
Mhm,
answer. Good.
mhm.
Yeah. So where's the struggle in your story?
So I guess the struggle in my story is I can come off strong. And so sometimes in coming off strong, that does make me, I'm aware that I can come off strong. And so sometimes I just choose not to come off at all because then I don't have to worry about coming off strong on people. Um, so it kind of makes me govern back and just gear down.
Okay. Where did this strength come from?
Where did the strength come from?
Yeah,
I hope
you
it's
said
God given.
you're strong. You come across strong. Where'd that come from?
um, Going through the fire,
Mm-hmm.
going through some things.
Yeah. Is there something that's coming up right now that is more connected to it?
I mean, I think just discussing all of this, as we're even talking, I'm just looking up the definition of the true, like Merriam-Webster's definition of intention. Um, and under it, number 2, it says medicine, the healing process of a wound. Okay, so where's the wound?
Yeah.
And I have some. Um, but the hair business has always been healing for me, right? Like it's this whole process has been healing. My balayage journey has been a healing process. It's a lot.
Yeah. How many of you are connecting with April right now? Yeah. So
My tissues.
in your not wanting to be vulnerable, April, vulnerability is going to show up anyway.
Right.
And let's see, how do I want to say this? We can prepare vulnerability in a way that allows us to still be present with others
Right.
and still feel a little exposed.
Right. Right. Like I can tell somebody I went to McDonald's. I don't have to tell them what all I ordered. Right. Like I can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But this level of vulnerability is, like you said, you're a strong person and you come across strong. So somehow you have to be able to share that as part of your story. Guys, there's a point where it's like, how do you learn things? Do you learn things really, like, do you dive into things and like hunker down until you get it?
Typically, yeah.
Okay. And then, this opportunity for you to be able to teach people in it, you got to just be able to say, listen, guys, I might come across really strong because I'm very passionate. Remember that strength and that kind of that fighter mentality that we have is really passion in disguise.
Okay.
Some people see it as like, whoa, she's intense, but it's like, I'm very passionate about it type of thing. So how can you create that level of your vulnerability into passion? And there is a story there. So I know you got it. I know we saw it. We just haven't heard it,
Hmm.
right? You guys agree with that?
Mhm.
So there's a story there that you got to bring out, and it has to do with you being strong. And people are going to resonate with that, April, because they're going to be like, she's committed to my learning, or she's very passionate about this and I want to be passionate about it too. Some people might still feel intimidated or scared to go into it, but then you're going to show that vulnerable side that says, I know, I was there. It wasn't that easy for me,
Yeah.
but I figured it out. Let me show you. Let me help you.
Okay.
Let me support you. Let me guide you. Okay. So as long as your strength comes with something that's going to help support a contribution to them on the other side, people will respond very positively to it.
Okay.
Okay. So I want you to think of one thing that is in your history, in your past, that kind of forced you to be strong.
Just one?
Yeah, just one. Because remember, what we don't want is like, and this happened, and this happened,
Right.
and then I was here, and then I was there. Like we want one. If you can craft one really good story that says, I didn't have a choice but to be strong, and craft that story up of your strength and how you're going to kind of like tie that into your classroom and your programs. All right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Denisha, what did
Yes.
you get from this so far?
So I got from listening to you work with Jill, Kimberly, and April that I didn't write my story. I skipped to intention, and I think maybe because the story was on the other page. But I do have my story that perfectly relates to the intention.
Okay. Do you want to hear
Um,
it?
sure, which part and where should I start?
Well, I always like starting the story at the beginning. I
Oh, you want to hear the story?
want to
The unwritten story?
I want to hear the story. I mean, do you have a story that's like a couple minutes long? Is like that you can
I think I can do it short and I can do it 2 minutes. So, but then here is where the question is,
okay.
how do you start the story? That was what I realized that I missed. It's like I said, I'm Denisha, the owner of, and I'm a Sunlights educator. But how do I just roll right into my story?
Yeah, that's the awkward part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, I'll give you that 100%. Every time, like I was just practicing a presentation that I'm going to be doing at the Sunlights Symposium in a couple of weeks. And I was practicing that transition and it was awkward as hell. And I'm like, okay. So I started taking notes on it and to try and like make that kind of like more sticky, that it wasn't just like, hi, I'm Bonnie, speaker, coach, author, podcaster. And then all of a sudden it's like, blah, type of thing. Like, how do you transition into it? So I want you to think about, now I don't know what your story is, so we can help
Okay.
you with this. So why don't you give us a little bit of your story,
Okay.
and then we can help you bridge that back in there of like the best way to start. So just start wherever you want to at this point.
Okay. So my story is that I've began to recognize that have always been driven by money. Meaning that I want to make more money, make more money, make more money. So much so that when I was in high school, I stopped running track my last year because I rather shampoo. I was a shampoo assistant. There's never been a time that I didn't work in salon through corporate, college, and even afterwards. So I stopped running track to shampoo so I can have my own money, even though my mama took care of everything. And then in my transition after doing hair for 6 years, again, all I knew how to do was do more clients to make more money. And so I just realized I came to a point that I needed to learn to work smarter and not harder. And then I discovered balayage. So that's like the gist of my story.
Okay, good, good. You guys all got that, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah. So you're coming
And
off
I
of,
left out one little part.
go ahead.
There was a in between high school and the Bali choosing, working real hard. That one time in church, I saw my mom writing a check, what I assumed to be for her tithes and offering. And I decided that I wasn't going to do hair because if that was her tithes, then I could just work a regular job. All an assumption. So
Mm.
that's how I ended up going, at least not choosing to do hair earlier.
Your mom does hair?
My mom, my grandmother, my aunt, my
Oh,
auntie.
I love that. I
I
love
mean, like 2 aunties, my
Yeah.
sisters. Yeah. So it's a whole family thing that I tried not to do.
Okay, so was the tithe less than you expected, or did you feel like it wasn't enough and that hair wasn't enough?
Yes.
Okay,
It was less than I expected. So if it was 10%, it was like $100. So if that meant you made $1,000 that week,
right.
that wasn't
Yeah,
gonna.
you put the math together pretty quick then, huh?
I did, but I never even asked her if that was her tithe.
Right, right. But that's how you see it. Okay. So when did this passion for money, like what age were you with that there was this passion for money? Like
What
I'm gonna make
age?
money.
I don't know if it was an exact age, but my mom has always been someone who keeps a notebook that, well, I thought she was keeping track of bills and it had numbers, but nothing beside it. So it always felt like she was budgeting for something. Um, and so I can't say that she ever taught me anything from that directly, I say, but I just felt like she was always trying to manage the money.
Okay.
And I wanted a surplus of money opposed to just getting by all the time.
Okay. All right. Is your mom still with us?
She is.
Okay, good. Have you ever asked her that question?
Never.
Oh,
And
you
I see her every day.
you should. You should ask her because we learn our money manifesting off of our parents and usually one over the other. So it sounds like your mother was kind of like the one for you. Okay. Um, and that energy of money, like it's either not enough, kind of like does start to manifest with there. But I'm curious, you don't know what the notebook is that she tracked these numbers on?
It was her probably balancing her bills to see if she had enough money for what she was going to make
Yeah.
versus the bills she had to pay.
Yeah. Good. Good. So, all right. So there's an easy tie into this, and I think you guys can all see it. That obviously, when she said she kept looking at money of doing more clients and not working smarter, than harder. Like I got to start learning how to work smarter, not harder. More clients was not more money, and that's when I found out like about the balayage. So that's a great transition in there. It kind of closes. It could easily close out your story. Okay. But you just have to kind of like build in the story a little bit of when did that money moment start for you?
When?
And I like how you transitioned that you stopped doing track your senior year, to go to work in the salon and start making money. And then you could throw in and say, "Oh, and by the way, my mother does hair, my grandmother did hair, two of my aunts do hair." And like you could kind of throw that in there as like, "By the way." So then people are going to be like, "Oh, like she's just destined to do this." But maybe your destiny was to not do it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how are you today with money? What's your relationship with money today?
It's a really good relationship. I'm all for planning. What? I am serious about my money. Um, yeah, like I got my 401k. I'm all about investing, paying myself first. Like I want to live a life of wealth, not just like of having just to have the things, but I want to teach other women how to build wealth so that you can enjoy your family and not feel stressed out, work all the hours, go home, fall asleep.
There's your intention right there. Write that down. Take a minute. Take a minute and write that down. There's your intention. Because I want your intention and your story to be bigger than balayage. I want it to be so connective to who you are as an individual in this world, that you have the power, the strength, and a gift to be able to give people something other than balayage. Balayage is just it's the path, it's the tool. But you still have to be the conduit to get people to have that. So you're more than balayage. So Denisha had said, you know, like I want people to have a life and to be able to spend it and not be stressed out and be able to take care of their kids and all of that other stuff that you said, Denisha. Write that down, because that's your intention. Nobody is going to be like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want that. I just want to learn the balayage technique, please. I don't want a good life, or, you know, like everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, this girl she's serious. And when you said, like, I pay myself first, I take all this very seriously, those are great pieces for when you're in your body. They don't necessarily have to be part of your story, because that might intimidate people of like, I'm just here to learn balayage. Whoa, yeah, I'm not there yet. I don't have a 401k plan. Should I be in this class? I want you to think how people think when sometimes we say things in a space that is not the right space to say it in. But your body, if you said, you guys listen, remember how I shared with you earlier in my story that, you know, how serious I am about this? I'm serious about this. I have a 401k. I pay myself first. And the reason why I got there is because I finally learned something that had me work smarter, not harder. And now I'm teaching it to you. That could be like a boom in the body. When people are struggling with painting hair, oh, it's so weird. I'm just going to go back to foiling. Like, that's what they're thinking in their head. This is hard. How do I know? Wait, how am I doing this? Am I doing this right? That transition of learning something new. Now all of a sudden you're throwing that in there. Boom. And they're like going, okay, I'm going to commit. I'm going to commit because I want that life. All right. So your story, find out how, now, you guys, I said that the second session is supposed to be about story, but I can see that obviously this is where we needed to spend the time here. So you have to find your story of, when did you first realize that your motivation to make money and yet still choose hair?
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't have to, right?
Mm-mm.
Good. All right. Who has comments, questions in regards to anything we've shared up to this point? Good. Yeah, go ahead, Kimberly.
You know, I can relate to what Jill said a lot. I struggled in high school. I went to a vocational school. I'm lucky I graduated. I have reading comprehension problems. And so I just know as an adult, and there were times when I first got out of school, because I graduated high school in the 80s. So most people, I'd say half of my high school class went to college, probably another quarter went in the military, and the other quarter just went and had a job.
Yeah.
So, you know, I went to vocational school, and for a long time I felt I was not smart, because that's what we were looked at. And I will say, like, I think it took me all the way until actually I moved to Charlotte, and my clientele is way different here than I had in Florida. So now I have a lot more professional people that are in my age group. And sometimes I would used to feel insecure. And then I thought about it one day. I thought, they can't even recreate what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know, and then they ask, because I have, you know, I'm in a studio, so all the colors behind me, and they ask questions. That's when I started to realize, like, you know what? I couldn't do their job, but they could never do my job.
Yeah. Good.
And, you know, I now don't feel like I'm not so bright anymore.
Yeah. Good.
So, maybe you could use something like that, Jill, if you struggle in school. My mother didn't even want me to go to beauty school because my mother is 86 and went to college and graduated. So, that was her goal for me. And I'm lucky, she fought it for a long time and then she finally signed the papers for me to go because I think she realized what is she going to do? I would have been living in my little hometown, just working at probably a menial job.
Yeah. 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 So you guys can see that we all have our own story. It led us to a path of where we're at now, which when we get into intention and relevancy is going to kind of like create that pop for us. So, Denisha, it seems natural for your relevancy to be, for you to say, all right, so right now, show of hands, how many of you want to work smarter, not harder? Like that would be a natural transition for you to create that as a relevancy. And then you're just going to go, let's get started. Now, as far as going back to all of the beginning of your story, I think you guys did a really great job, kind of like sharing that piece of it. But I want you to there has to be like, just like when you open up a book, like, once upon a time type of thing. There has to be that one thing that just says, and let me see where. When I was working on my presentation just before we started here, it was like I was coming off of a slide. Because remember when I did the slide, you guys, I did the numbers. Okay. So sometimes that can help open things up and just get you talking. All right. Somebody may have already introduced you. If not, you've done the introduction yourself. Hi, do you go by Kim or Kimberly?
Kim.
Okay. So hi, I'm Kim. And then you're, sharing your role and everything. And you could do something that helps to create a transition. There's like the prelogue to a story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That kind of like just kind of rounds it out. But ultimately, you just have to be able to say, so I want you guys to know something about me. I'm seriously money motivated. When I was blankety blank, I watched my mom write down the notebook. Or when I was sitting in church with my mom one day, I saw her give a tithe and I thought, was that it? If that's 10%, is that equate to what she makes? And I started to put the math together in my head, and I was young. And I didn't know what it meant. And I thought, I want to be able to make more than that. Does she make more than that? And I continued to question, but I continued to realize that I was committed to going down this same path as my mother, being a hairdresser, which, by the way, my mother, my aunt, my grandmother were all hairdressers. But I wanted to go into it with the idea that I could make more. So it's easy once you get that first line down, because the truth is you're rolling into a story that is you. It's not, data up in here, that logical data up in here that is like, now I've got to regurgitate it for others to learn too. Your story is you. So just come up with that first line that makes that transition for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, I'm going to pull this back up. I'm going to share the screen because this is what I did have intended for you guys today. I'm moving. I'm trying to move it. There we go. All right. So again, you guys got this information here. You have it in multiple formats based on where it is, but the staging method in itself, opening, story, relevancy, okay? So the story is a big part of the opening, and then into the relevancy. That's what I want you to be practicing over the next couple of weeks as you're progressing through the program. and then we'll get to body and call to action in our third live. But since you guys were so awesome about, getting through this part of it and wanting to focus on story, I'm going to challenge all of you to put together a 2-minute story, okay, for our next live. Okay. Remember that storytelling was one of the things that you said was going to make you a great speaker. But what I want to practice right now is name, role, and intention. And then I have a challenge for you guys to put this out into the world. Oh, who'd we lose? Denisha. Oh, there she is. She's back.
I'm back. I accidentally did airplane mode. I'm sorry.
I thought you were like, no, I'm not practicing. No, don't.
I'm back. Sorry.
So, how comfortable are you guys with your name, role, and then let's say that you did the story, but just then sharing an intention based on what we shared today? Who wants to go first? All right, go ahead, Denisha.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Denisha Horton. I'm the owner of the Colored In Hair Studio located in East Point, Georgia. It's just 10 minutes outside of downtown Atlanta. I'm a colorist, and an extension specialist, and I'm also a sunlight balayage artist.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. Okay.
Oh, did you want me to go into intention too?
Yeah, and then this is where you'd go into your story, okay? But then what I want you to do is just practice an intention.
So do all 4 parts or skip the story?
Yeah, skip the story.
All right. I'll start over, but I'll go fast. Well, kind of fast. Hello, everyone. I'm Denisha Horton. I'm the owner of the Colored In Hair Studio located in East Point, Georgia. It's just 10 minutes outside of downtown Atlanta. I'm a colorist, an extension specialist, and I'm also a sunlight educator. My intention today is to, I guess I wasn't as ready as I thought, ladies.
That's okay.
Today, I will show you how to confidently and safely get 6 levels of lift using Sunlight's tools and techniques. These same tools and techniques will allow you to create soft and seamless highlights while making more money. I promise that your clients will be begging to pay you to give them balayage.
Okay, now I want you to think about, Denisha, how that's coming off of your story. Does that kind of like, if you're coming off of a story, then all of a sudden you're kind of doing this manufactured commercial, how is that going to land with others?
Like I'm selling them something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's still a beautiful thing to say when you're in the body. Remember, you guys, that type of thing. Or it could be that that it's on a slide. I don't know if you guys use slides with some of your presentations and everything.
So my intention should have been like what you said, not what I wrote.
Yeah.
Today, I want to show you how to make more money working smarter, not harder.
Yeah. And you can add to that. You can add some elements to that. Okay. But remember, you've got your relevancy that's going to bump right up to this. So it's like, so today, my intention is to be able to show you guys how to work smarter, not harder. And through balayage hair painting, that's one way. But the other way is to be able to help you to overcome your fear of trying something new or whatever, okay? Overcome your fear of thinking that this isn't going to work for you, or learning something new, or thinking that you're sacrificing, time for money, or money for whatever. Like there's something else in it that you could be adding to it that does kind of like create that tie-in. It could be more than one thing in your intention. Just, I wouldn't have it feel so commercial. Because remember, this is still you sharing something. And they're buying into you right now. They already bought into balayage. Now they need to buy into you.
Those So scratch all the stuff I wrote.
There's a place for it.
Okay.
It's just not right there.
This is good. I mean, I get now it makes sense with the authentic part.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, yes.
Yeah, good. All right, who wants to go next? Who's avoiding? Who's trying not to?
I don't know. I didn't have everything. I didn't get the intention wrote down,
That's
but I'll
okay.
just kind of wing it.
This is
How's
all
that sound?
practice. This is
Okay.
perfect. This is
Mhm.
practice.
Hi, everyone. I am Kim DiGiulio. I am an educator for Sunlight's Professional. I am a studio owner. I own a studio in Charlotte, North Carolina, Hairs to Beautiful. And my intention today is to help build the confidence in you to take home a new service to offer your guests, to elevate your color service and make more money and work smarter, not harder.
Okay, good. Good. So I like everything in there. I would say again, try to just pull out the very practical piece of what we do, like something offering your new guests. Like keep it about them. And that point is so it could be like for you to feel so confident that you're gonna want every single one of your clients to have this service so that you can work smarter, not harder, and in turn make more money type of thing.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Good job. See, this is why practice is good. All right, April or Jill, who wants to go next?
Go
I'll
ahead,
go
Jill.
next. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jill Tobar, aka Boise Balayage Girl from Boise, Idaho. I've been in the industry for 34 years, and I've been with Sunlight Balayage Professionals since 2018. And today, my intention is to be able for you to pick up your brush and be able to paint a highlight, and not to feel struggled or nervous about doing it. So I would love. Sorry, I got nervous at that part. So pick up your paintbrush and be able to elevate your service at the chair and be successful and work smarter, not harder.
Okay, good. How'd you guys feel that landed?
Yep.
Good.
Now, depending on what your story is, Jill, it may not connect. Okay, so when you craft your story up and we are on the next session and we have an opportunity to hear your story, that may not connect. So it could be tied more to instead of painting the hair. In other words, do you see how you're going into the education piece of it? Could be
And yes.
how to be more creative with a new technique that's going to allow you to, or something like that.
Okay.
Because that was kind of like very focused on, I'm going to teach you how to paint hair with the paintbrush and type of thing. So it's coming off of your story, so it has to feel like now, because of my story and the struggles that I've been through and what I've learned, I want to transfer that excitement, that love, that passion, that skill to you. But it's bigger and broader than painting hair.
Okay.
All right, perfect. April?
Okay, I think I'm ready. Hi, my name is April Payne, and I am a hairdresser for 30 years. I have trained others how to do hair in every aspect. And today, what I'd really like to do is to teach you how investing in others will create a return on your investment, and how whenever we pour into other people, we will receive a return on that.
Okay, good. Good. I like where you're going with that. So the investment of other people probably has to tie into your story somehow, which I feel like you were trying to make that connection in there. But you guys, can you see that even though we didn't hear anybody's story, if it sounds too commercial, it's not going to connect with them. but it has to tie into something where it's still a desire that they want and why they've shown up to begin with. And we're fulfilling it. So then after you talk about relevancy, Denisha, that would be like a perfect time for you to say, okay, now we're going to talk about balayage and we're going to talk about this, and whatever that intention that you had earlier, that could be a bridge from relevancy into body. Now people know class has started. Education is on. All right, makes sense? Perfect. All right. So here is my challenge for you guys. If you're not in the Facebook group, join the Facebook group, okay? Staging Your Beauty Brand. But if, because I know some people are not on Facebook or whatever, but either way, you're either going to do it in the Facebook group, which would be a very safe place to practice, or you're going to take the challenge and go all the way to your Instagram or Facebook, and you're going to do name, role, and intention live. Like, throw it out there. Put it out there on your social media. Okay? And again, they don't make it just about Sunlight's balayage. Make it about you. What is your contribution you are willing to give to other people or have them pay for that you're going to give them in return something as payment, okay? In lieu of payment or as payment, to be able to kind of like take that next step. So you could say something like, as a hairdresser for 30 years and an educator for the last 5, I've seen the difference that these skills have made for me, and I want to share those with you. Okay, so it's kind of like and it sums it all up. Boom, that's all you have to do. And then my other homework for you guys is to be able to put a 2-minute story together. And then we're going to tie opening, role, story, and intention together. And then for those of you that are listening to the record and weren't able to make it today to the session, the challenge goes for you as well. All right. I hope you learned everything from our great attendees today. So thank you, April, Kimberly, Jill, and Denisha, for you guys being vulnerable and exposing yourself to this particular thing. But for those of you that are listening to the record, same challenge. Put yourself out there, name, role, intention. In our next session, which is September 13th, it's on a Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern time, because I'm going to be traveling on that Monday, so I'm not going to be able to do the Monday. I want you guys to join me. And those of you that are on here today, prepare a 2-minute presentation. And those of you that are going to be joining us on the Wednesday session, be prepared for us to be able to talk about your story. If you have a 2-minute presentation ready to go, great. We'll be ready to hear it. All right. Any last minute questions before we wrap up, you guys? Good. What's one thing that you got out of today?
Not to talk about balayage when I first talking my opening story.
And listen, nothing against balayage, Candy, or the whole Sunlights organization, but remember, this is about people gravitating and connecting with you. Because I know you got the goods. Candy knows you got the goods. We all know you got the goods. So get them to like you, and then they're going to love the education.
Okay.
All right. What else?
That my story must connect smoothly with my intentions.
Okay, good. And the intentions, good. What else?
Well, I just think that intention is actually going to be the pressing force for getting over the vulnerability piece. I mean, I think it's a matter of just pressing into the intention to almost remove vulnerability. It's like that's more important. So what does that matter? Right. Doing the right thing because it's the right thing.
Yeah, and getting people excited about why they're there.
Yeah.
And they're nervous about learning something new. So how do we help people get past that, right? Good.
Right.
Excellent. And anything else?
I think that you can have more than one story, and maybe your story needs to relate more to the type of the class that you're having.
You can have more than one story, but Kimberly, I'm gonna I'm going to throw this out to you, okay? And I want you to think about this over the next couple weeks, all right? As you listen to more sessions and before we come back live, I want you to think about your story having nothing to do with your class.
Okay.
I want to challenge you that your story has nothing to do with your class. It's okay if it does. I promise you it's more powerful if it doesn't.
Okay.
All right. So yes, you can have multiple stories. I have multiple opening stories. This is what I consider to be my signature story. Multiple. And then I have multiple little mini stories that I talk about through the body and as I get to the call to action piece. All right. So absolutely.
Can I say one last thing?
Sure.
And I guess for all of us, and I mean for me, that when we're practicing this, to practice making it not sound like we practice. Because the commercial thing comes off very easily.
Yeah, yes, yeah, and there is a place for it, right? You'll find the right place for that. Okay? It's comfortable for you to do that, and we've been trained to do that. We're not in the actual educational part of it. Okay? So if we look at this right here, when you're in the opening and the story and the relevancy, you're in you. You are helping people to prepare their brain for the download. This right here, boom, people are expecting you to be professional, balayage driven, technique driven, product driven, all of that. Okay? We're just trying to not have that happen in that front end so that people can connect with you, like you, trust you. Okay?
Bonnie, the page says the staging method body. Is that not on any of the handouts that you gave us?
It's when you get into session 3, I think. This one is the download.
Okay, because I did download that. I don't see it though. But I'll look. Maybe I have it somewhere else. But I didn't notice that, but I don't know, because I did download it. I mean, I looked at everything because I like to know what's happening before it ends.
Yeah, of course. Of course. If it's not there, let me know though, Kimberly.
Okay, I don't see it, but
Yeah, let me know.
okay.
And I'll go back and double check on it as well. But yeah, that should be the handout when you get into session 3, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, you have access to me. You got my email. You've got the being in the Facebook group. If you have questions or you get stuck on something, reach out in between, and I'm happy to help you out so we can progress through this. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
September 13th.
You too. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.